affected me and my family personally. They have required me to, my children, to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago, around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it, and I didn't know how to respond.
So, Amy Barrett, have you told your 12-year-old son how to love thy neighbor as thyself? Have you told your 12-year-old son of how Katie Paquita and Sped Noodles voted for an adjudicated rapist in their silence, and they stood by while the election was going on? Have you told your 12-year-old son about the 1.4 million Native Americans that died during the Trial of Tears and the Middle Passage? No? Because you didn't want to, you didn't want to encourage your son to learn about white privilege. That's what it was, right? Did you teach your son about, I don't know, Matthew 24, verse 6? Did you teach your son about Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to 46? Oh, you haven't? Because that's what's going to happen to you on Judgment Day. Just like what's going to happen with Katie Paquita and Sped Noodles and Vampiric and everybody else that is okay with supporting Nazis. You are what's wrong with this country, Amy. Amy Justice Barrett. More like Amy Justice Supremacist. Or Amy White Supremacist. That's what your name should be. Justice Barrett, more like white supremacist Barrett. You love only yourself. I wonder, did you also tell your 12-year-old son of how Acts chapter 2, verse 19 to 20 was written? Did you tell your son that, I'm going to get judged on Judgment Day based on my deeds? Did you tell him that? No? Because you don't want him to be afraid, right? You want him to be strong. You want him to be courageous in his white privilege. Because that's what's wrong with this country. Katie Paquita supported Graham Plattner, a Nazi advocate for genocide in Gaza. She also supported Lindsey Graham, who's always known about the Bible, but is also about white supremacy. She also supported the totem cloth that Graham Plattner had on his chest. Did you tell your 12-year-old son about these kind of people? Katie Paquita, Sped Noodles, Vampiric, and everyone else that loves to dehumanize quadriplegics and autistics and brown people? No? Because you don't want him to know about the marginalized. You want him only to know about white. So, Amy, when you see your 12-year-old son standing before you on Judgment Day, don't act like you're afraid. Act like normal, because you were normal on Earth. You normalized a man that raped children and bombed 187 schoolgirls in Iran. You normalized it. So why don't you normalize your 12-year-old son learning about white supremacy? How about that? Why don't you tell God about that? Oh, that's right, because you don't want to. Because you're afraid of a white minority. That's why you don't want to talk to your 12-year-old son. That's why you said, I don't know how to respond to that. Because you're scared of your son speaking the truth. That's fucking why. See, this is why me, Paul Lance, and Schlepp call people like you out. Because you're a hypocrisy to the government. You're also the hypocrisy to the United States. You don't love your neighbor. You love yourself. And that's the issue with this country. See, God created all of us equally in the image of God. To what? Love our neighbors, forgive our enemies, even when they have hurt us in the past, or when it's like a few years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and yet you still want to bring it up like it's a culture war. That's what Kitty Paquita is doing right now. She's making videos upon videos of culture wars, and yet she claims herself as Christian. She's not a Christian. She's a modern-day Pharisee. Love thy neighbor as thyself, for you yourselves were born out from the midst of Egypt. She doesn't know about God. She plays him. She acts like she knows every single person. She acts like she knows Gia. She acts like she knows Vampiric. She acts like she knows modern Sonic through cyberbullying and cyberstalking. When in reality, she does it herself because she doesn't care about quantity. No, she doesn't care about value. She cares about quantity. What did Maria Calavera said to Ruby? I know. Life is beautiful. Life is precious. And it must be what? That's right. It must be protected. You didn't give a shit about your 12-year-old son when he was in a school getting shot and killed. You didn't give your fucks about your 12-year-old son when he was doing active shooter drills. You didn't give a fuck while your child was born because you only loved yourself. When was the last time you ever came to your son and talked to him and gave him the quote-unquote pep talk about loving thy neighbor? Kitty Paquita never did it to one of her friends because she never wanted to talk about loving thy neighbor. She wants to talk about how the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse were made by science. Okay. Read Genesis 1 verse, read all of Genesis. Where God created the heavens and the earth, and then he said what? Let there be light. And there was light. So not only did God create the sun, he also created the moon, which also means he created what? The solar eclipse. He also created the lunar eclipse. You can't prove God is real, but what he does proves it. He created the earth when it was without light and without firmament. See, Amy, that's how you talk to your son. That's how you talk to your son to get him to know about God more. By preaching the truth. By telling him that loving thy neighbor as thyself and focusing on faith gets you to heaven. It's not by works, nor by provisional works, lest any man should boast. This is the reason why we are seeing a literal speed run of the Great Tribulation that is to come. Hey, Amy Barrett, who warned you about the earthquakes that happened in Venezuela? Who warned you about the pestilence of the hantavirus? Who warned you about various earthquakes happening in various places? Who warned you about various astronomical events happening in the sun and the moon and the stars? That's right. Jesus did. But you didn't want to listen to Jesus, didn't you? You wanted to listen to what you wanted to hear. So when Judgment Day comes, and when your 12-year-old son is standing before you on Judgment Day, don't act afraid. Don't act like you had a shred of care now. Normalize it, like you normalized your 12-year-old son to learn about white supremacy. And the king will say to those on the left, depart from me, ye cursed of iniquity, banished to everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and of his angels. For I was hungry, you left me to starve. I was thirsty, you left me to dehydrate. I was a homeless man, you did not give me a home. I was naked and without clothes, you did not clothe me. Sick in the hospital and imprisoned, you did not visit me. And those who are on the left will say to the king, when have we done all of these things and have ministered unto you? Then the king will say, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. Do you know what that means, Amy? That means, inasmuch as you did not tell your 12-year-old son about Alex Preddy getting shot and killed, about how, inasmuch as you did not talk about Renee Good, inasmuch as you did not talk about Lorenzo Salgado, who was shot and killed by ICE, you did not talk about Christ to your son. And those type of people will go into everlasting punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. That's why you're not a person of faith. That's why Kitty Paquita is not a person of faith. Because she loves to dehumanize Native Americans. I looked on her YouTube page, a lot of dehumanization, mainly white people, but as well as Native Americans and black people, because she doesn't give a fuck who she makes videos on, as long as she makes money out of it. That's the truth. Not only that, she made fun of a Native American, and her cries were like a wail. She made fun of that cry. That's what you're teaching your 12-year-old son, Amy. White indoctrination. You're buying your son into the American lie that we're the best of the best of the best when we're fucking not. We're a paper tiger. So, what are you going to do, Amy? What are you going to do, Amy Barrett? No, matter of fact, that's not your name anymore. What are you going to do, white supremacist Barrett? Are you going to tell your 12-year-old son how you shook the hands of a racist podcaster? How you shook hands with an adjudicated rapist who raped a 12-year-old who literally is getting sued for $8 trillion by raping her in the Supreme Court? Are you going to tell your 12-year-old son about Matthew chapter 24, verse 6? Are you going to tell your 12-year-old son about the book of Acts chapter 2, verse 19 to 20? Where God will show signs and wonders in heaven and signs of the earth beneath? Are you going to tell your 12-year-old son about, the 77 million idiots that voted for this shit and never said anything afterwards after the election have won? You're not, because you don't want to let your son be brought into actual truth. You want your son to be brought into the American exceptionalism, that racism is expensive. Right? Fuck off, Amy. Fuck off. Fuck off. If I was the father of that 12-year-old son, I would teach him about every little thing in the Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation. I would teach him that. Because why? Because he rather loves his neighbor as himself. Kitty Paquita never loved her neighbors. She never even forgave her friends, even those that hurt her. Like Gia, Maya, and all her other cases that she worked on. Didn't God say for you to forgive your enemies so that your Father in heaven will forgive you? I wonder why Kitty Paquita never got forgiven by Christ. I wonder why she never got forgiven by God. Oh, that's right. Because she never forgave her enemies, even those that hurt her in the past. So, Amy, before you go home, before you go to your 12-year-old son, first, talk to him about Matthew 24, verse 6. How the reason why all of this is happening is because the Bible is actually being portrayed and actually being brought out in real life as we are seeing it right now. Tell your 12-year-old son how you're going to stand before God and normalize how you normalize 187 schoolgirls getting bombed in Iran. Maybe your son will think of how terrible you are as a mother because you never forgave people. You never forgave Black people. You never forgave Native Americans because you never loved your neighbors. You only love yourself. This is it, America. This is who you want in the Supreme Court justice system? I know I certainly wouldn't. If I had someone like that, I'd fire her immediately. If I was in the Supreme Court justice system, and if I heard that Amy Barrett was coming into to the Supreme Court, I'd fire her immediately because she should have told her 12-year-old son how to love thy neighbor as thyself, and to love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your souls, because these two commandments sums up the law of Moses. It says that in the Bible. These two commandments sums up the law of Moses. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and to love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. But you don't love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. You love the God of this world, Satan, the Antichrist, with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. Right? So how about when your son gets raptured up and you get left behind, don't blame God. Don't blame God. Don't blame Jesus that your son was taken, but you were left behind. Because why? Because you couldn't tell your 12-year-old son how to love your neighbor as what Jesus commanded us to do from the very beginning of time. So, Amy Barrett, or should I say white supremacist Barrett, have yourself a white day. And when you do go back home to your 12-year-old son, tell him, am I really worth it being a mom who never told you about the Bible, who never told you about Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33? Tell him that. And when he says, no, you're not worth it, then you'll know the truth. That your son does not want to learn about white history. Your son wants to learn about actual history. The Trail of Tears, the Middle Passage, the 3/5 Clause, January 6th. Actual history. Have a white day.